In the crisp dawn of April 1945, as the first rays of sunlight pierced the barbed wire fences of Camp Hearn in the flat expanse of central Texas, a group of 12 German women prisoners of war stood in a ragged line on the dusty parade ground. The air carried the scent of dew-soaked earth and distant cattle, mingled with a faint, unfamiliar aroma of fresh brewed coffee wafting from the American mess hall. Their boots, worn from months of captivity, sank slightly into the red soil, and the low hum of a distant truck engine echoed across the open fields, a reminder of the vast, untamed landscape that surrounded them. One woman, her hands clasped tightly, felt the cool metal of her identification tag against her skin, her breath visible in the morning chill as she awaited the daily orders from the towering American sergeant. This moment, seemingly ordinary in the routine of a prisoner of war camp, marked a profound rupture in the worldview of these women, auxiliaries of the Wehrmacht captured far from home. Camp Hearn, established in 1942 amid the labor shortages plaguing American agriculture during the war, housed over 4,000 German POWs at its peak, part of a nationwide network of more than 500 camps that detained approximately 425,000 Axis prisoners by 1945. The United States, adhering strictly to the 1929 Geneva Convention, treated these captives not as enemies to be broken, but as laborers to be utilized, a policy driven by the acute need for manpower on farms and ranches while millions of American men fought overseas. In Texas alone, over 50,000 German POWs filled the void, harvesting cotton, cutting timber, and tending livestock under supervised conditions. For these women, nurses, clerks, and radio operators seized in the North African collapse of May 1943, their journey to this remote outpost had begun with a harrowing Atlantic crossing aboard converted troopships, where U-boat threats loomed and rations consisted of little more than hardtack and watery soup. Yet, upon arrival in the U.S., the reality diverged sharply from the Nazi propaganda that had painted America as a land of decadent savages, where prisoners faced torture and deprivation. The women had braced for the worst, their minds poisoned by tales from Berlin's Ministry of Propaganda under Joseph Goebbels, who broadcasted warnings of American brutality, stories of beatings, forced marches, and starvation camps modeled after the horrors of Dachau or Buchenwald, which they knew all too well from whispers back home. One prisoner, a former nurse named Greta from Bavaria, later recounted in a post-war letter preserved in the U.S. National Archives, "We expected chains around our ankles, whips at our backs, and meals of sawdust and water. The Führer's words echoed in our ears. The Americans were barbarians, devoid of culture, who would crush us under their capitalist heel." Instead, as they disembarked in Newark Harbor in late 1943, they were met with orderly processing, medical examinations that revealed their malnourishment, many weighing under 100 pounds after months in transit, camps and transport by rail across a continent that seemed endlessly prosperous. Through train windows, they glimpsed fields heavy with corn, shops stocked with meat and fabric, and civilians driving automobiles, a stark contrast to the ration scarcity of wartime Germany, where the average citizen subsisted on 1,500 calories daily by 1944, often supplemented by ersatz bread made from potatoes and sawdust. At Camp Hearn, the shocks accumulated. The camp, sprawling across 700 acres with barracks heated by coal stoves and equipped with running water, adhered to Geneva standards. Prisoners received the same rations as U.S. soldiers, 2,800 calories per day, including fresh vegetables, meat, and even luxuries like coffee and cigarettes. But it was the labor program that truly upended their expectations. Under War Department directives, POWs could volunteer for work details, earning 80 cents per day in canteen credits, with farmers paying the government $1.50 for their services. For these women, assigned to nearby ranches due to their non-combatant status, the transition began with disbelief. Rancher Tom Wheeler, a weathered Texan with a 4,000-acre spread depleted of hands by enlistments, selected them not for grueling toil, but with a pragmatic eye. Inspecting their frail forms upon arrival in August 1944, he declared, as documented in camp logs now held at the Texas A&M University archives, "You're too thin to work. We'll fatten you up first." What followed was weeks of lighter duties mending fences, grooming horses interspersed with meals of cornbread, beans, and beef stew, portions so generous that some women wept at the sight, their stomachs unaccustomed to such bounty. Here, the symbolic chocolate bar entered their lives, a small, foil-wrapped emblem of American abundance that recurred in their daily routines, shattering the illusions of scarcity ingrained by years of total war, offered casually by guards during breaks. Hershey's bars, mass-produced for U.S. troops and now shared with captives. The chocolate melted sweetly on their tongues, its richness evoking a democracy where even enemies partook in plenty. One woman, Lisa from Stuttgart, noted in her diary, later published in a 1950s German memoir, "The guard handed me a chocolate bar without a word, as if it were nothing." In Germany, such a treat was reserved for the elite. Here, it was given freely, a symbol of their endless resources, their belief that abundance could be shared without diminishing. This simple object, recurring in their stories tucked into pockets during rides, shared among the group in barracks at night, represented not just material wealth, but the ideological freedom of a society unbound by ration cards and hierarchies. As months passed, the emotional chasm widened. Expecting constant surveillance and punishment, the women found themselves on horseback, traversing vast pastures under the wide Texas sky, often in pairs or trios with guards at a distance. The honor system, a hallmark of U.S. POW policy, allowed trusted prisoners freedoms unimaginable in Europe. Historical records from the Provost Marshal General's office indicate that by 1944, over 200,000 German POWs nationwide participated in such programs. With escape rates below 1%, many who fled returned voluntarily, drawn back by the treatment. For these women, the pinnacle came in early 1945, as news of Germany's crumbling defenses filtered through camp radios. Wheeler, with Army approval, permitted outings to nearby Herne Town, where they walked the streets without shackles or immediate escorts, browsing stores under loose supervision. The shock was visceral. "We walked freely among the Americans," one anonymous prisoner reported in a Red Cross interview archived in Geneva. "No guards barking orders, no rifles at our backs. We bought fabric for sewing, tasted ice cream from a parlor, things we thought meant." This liberty contrasted brutally with their anticipated fate. Propaganda had warned of rape and humiliation, yet guards maintained discipline, enforcing rules against fraternization while offering courtesy. In Colorado's Camp Trinidad, similar accounts emerged, where German POWs attended church services unguarded, as noted in the Denver Post of May 1945. The transformation was inevitable, reshaping their perceptions from enmity to reluctant admiration. Initially loyal to the Reich, some even forming secret Nazi cells in camps, as uncovered by FBI investigations leading to 1944 re-education programs. The women began questioning the ideology that had sustained them. Exposure to American newspapers, English classes, and films screened in camp theaters, part of the intellectual diversion program that reached 372,000 POWs, highlighted democratic principles. Greta, the riding instructor, evolved from suspicion to gratitude, teaching Wheeler's wife horse braiding techniques while absorbing tales of immigrant freedoms. By war's end, as VE Day announcements blared on May 8, 1945, many wept not just for defeat, but for the ideological shift. America, once the demonized other, embodied a resilience born of plenty and trust. Lisa's letters home, censored but preserved in family collections, shifted from defiance to wonder. Here, even prisoners are treated as humans, with rights and rations. It makes one doubt the superiority we were taught. Statistically, this change manifested in repatriation data. Of the 425,000 German POWs, fewer than 5,000 faced war crimes trials, and many applied for U.S. immigration post-war, with some women marrying locals and settling in states like Texas and Iowa. The chocolate bar, that recurring token, crystallized this evolution. During a Christmas 1944 gathering at Wheeler's Ranch approved with guards present, but atmosphere familial, the women shared peach pie and carols, a guard slipping them extra bars from his pocket. It was more than food, one reflected in a 1946 oral history collected by the University of North Texas. It was proof of a system where generosity flowed from strength, not fear. In unguarded moments on ranch trails, biting into the chocolate amid the sounds of lowing cattle, they tasted the democracy they had been indoctrinated to despise, a society where resources uplifted rather than divided. In the epilogue of this forgotten chapter, as the women boarded trains for repatriation in late 1945, returning to a rubble-strewn Germany where 40% of housing lay destroyed and famine gripped the populace, the lessons lingered like the sweetness of that symbolic chocolate. It whispered a larger truth. Freedom thrives not in conquest but in the quiet abundance that allows even the vanquished to walk unshackled, to taste plenty amid privation, and to glimpse a world where ideology bends to humanity's shared hunger for dignity. In the vast fields of memory, where wars fade but their echoes persist, this stands as a poetic testament that true victory lies in the mercy that transforms foes into reflections of our better selves. A democracy not of arms but of open hands, offering sustenance to heal the divides of conflict.